Hare Krishna. So today, we will be reading from A Transcendental Diary, Travels with His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, October 1976 to November 1976, by Hari Saridas. So this is past times. Currently we are in Hawaii. As he had advised Brahmananda, another GBC, whose zone suffered while he was out of station, Prabhupada now told Guru Kripa, "Now you please stay there until you have properly trained up a competent manager. And then you must carefully supervise so that this may not happen again. Hawaii is a good field, so do it carefully. You have done the right thing to inform me of the situation. Thank you for rectifying the situation." Guru Kripa Maharaj also included in his letter a request for first initiation for a new Japanese devotee and some seconds. Prabhupada obliged. "I am pleased to accept the devotees you have recommended for initiation. Hold a fire ceremony. Instruct the devotees in the necessary way. You may chant on the beads, play the tape of me chanting the Gayatri Mantra, etc. Do the needful. The new initiate's name is Naga Natana Das." Another letter has arrived from Rameshwara Swami. No management this time, just an opening prayer of glorification and appreciation and a list of candidates for initiations. It is beyond our power to appreciate our good fortune that you are allowing such lowly conditioned souls like us to associate with you. Yet there is no other way for us to become purified, for us to attain devotional service. Then to associate with you is your eternal servants. Knowing this, the following devotees have begged for initiation, and after examining them and waiting a sufficient period of time, I would humbly recommend them. He listed 11 men and 5 women for first initiations, and 4 men and 6 women for second. Srila Prabhupada was happy to accept them. Among them was Alan Tsupnik, the Bhakta whom Rameshwara had brought for a personal darshan when Prabhupada visited Los Angeles in June. He has been given the name Amala Bhaktadas. Okay. Srila Prabhupada's Transcendental Pastimes Ki Jai. Any comments or questions, anything like that? All right. So now we will be reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam today, 5th chapter, fifth canto, titled The Creative Impetus. Chapter 1. The activities of Maharaj Priyavrata. Verse number 25. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Agni Dred Ma Jiva Yagya Bahu Mahavira Hiranyareto Grita Prishta Savana Medhatiti Vitihotra Kavaya Iti Sarva Evagni Namanaha. The 10 sons of Maharaj Priyavrata were named Agnidhra, Idmajiva, Yagyabahu, Mahavira, Hiranyareta, Grita Prishta, Savana, Medhatiti, Vitihotra, and Kavi. These are also names of Agni, the fire god. Text 26. Itesham Kavir Mahavira Savana iti Traya Asan Udva Retasas Ta Atma Vijayam Arbha Bhavad Arabhya Krita Parichayaha Paramahamsyam Evasramam Abhajan Etesham of these Kavihi Kavi Mahavira Savana Iti thus Trayaha 3 Asan were Urdhva Retasaha completely celibate. Te they Atma Vidyayam in transcendental knowledge. Arbha Bhavat from childhood. Arabhya beginning. Krita Parichayaha very well versed. Paramahamsyam of the highest spiritual perfection of human life. Eva certainly. Ashramam the order. Abhajan executed. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace by Charanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki Jaya. Translation. 3 among these 10, namely Kavi, Mahavira, and Savana, lived in complete celibacy. Thus trained in brahmachari life from the beginning of childhood, they were very conversant with the highest perfection, known as the Paramahamsa Ashrama. Purport. The word Urdhva Retasaha in this verse is very significant. Urdhva Retaha refers to one who can control sex life and who, instead of wasting semen by discharging it, can use this most important substance accumulated in the body to enrich the brain. One who can completely control sex life is able to work wonderfully with his brain, especially in remembering. Thus, students who simply hear Vedic instructions once from their teacher could remember them verbatim without needing to read books, which therefore did not exist in former times. Another significant word is Arbha Bhavat, which means from very childhood. Another meaning is from being very affectionate to children. In other words, Paramahamsa life is dedicated for the benefit of others. Just as a father sacrifices many things out of affection for his son, great saintly persons sacrifice all kinds of bodily comforts for the benefit of human society. In this connection, there is a verse concerning the 6 Goswamis. Chaktva Turnam Asesha Mandalapati Srening Sadhatu Chavahat Budva Dina Ganesa Kau Karunaya Kaupina Kantasritao. Because of their compassion for the fallen for the poor, fallen souls, the 6 Goswamis gave up their exalted positions as ministers and took vows as mendicants. Thus minimizing their bodily wants as far as possible, they each accepted only a loincloth and a begging bowl. Thus they remained in Vrindavan to execute the orders of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by compiling and publishing various Vaishnava literatures. Very nice. Okay. Om Anjana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swa Padantikam Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Langayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamam Bande Sri Guru Dinatharina. Again, I will read the translation. 3 among these 10, namely Kavi, Mahavira, and Savana, lived in complete celibacy, thus trained in brahmachari life from the beginning of childhood. They were very conversant with the highest perfection, known as the Paramahamsa Ashrama. Okay, so what are we saying? What does Prabhupada say in the purport? So in the Bible it also says, don't waste your semen. Did you know that? That's also in the Bible. Oops, that doesn't work. And it says in this verse that Prabhupada is saying that by this accumulation of semen, if you, and I think there's even an exercise you can do where you can actually move that up your body into your brain. And it nourishes the brain. In scripture, it also says that 1 drop of semen is equal to 40 drops of blood. So it takes a lot of energy to create that fluid. And it's a very powerful fluid. This is the fluid of procreation. It's a seed, fluid of seeds. So it's a very potent, fluid, and it's also used for procreation. And then it says here that you can use it even to enrich the brain by storing it, by not spending it. And of course, to do that, you have to be free in your mind from this desire, this attachment, material attachment, so that you don't even think about it. Now, what's fortunate, because even if some desire is there, if you have a little bit of intelligence, because intelligence is supposed to be the, I think we said yesterday, watchdog of the mind. Intelligence is saying, what are you thinking about? I don't know, not a good idea, whatever it is, right? If you go that direction, because what is the mind doing? The mind is, how is it said nicely? It's rejecting and also determining. Or is it determining? No, not determining. Yeah, I think it is determining. Determination, not like thinking anymore. So it's accepting and rejecting. The mind is accepting and rejecting, and the intelligence is assisting the mind because it analyzes things that come into view. Right? So things are kind of floating through the mind. And the intelligence says, okay, no, yes. Because where does it take us? The intelligence is able to, hopefully, not be so myopic. Short-term thinking is myopic, right? Only seeing right in front of you. But able to think ahead of time a little bit. Okay, this will bring us to this location. So if desire for sex life is entering into the mind, and the intelligence then, if for a brahmachari, the intelligence says, no, don't do that. Go. Next. What's the next thing that's on there, on the list? And so, because even by thinking about it, the body responds. Just like when you smell nice prasadam. Automatically, the juices in the stomach, yes, we're going to digest some prasadam. in the mouth, some watering is going on, increasing the saliva, right? Because water is there necessary for tasting. To taste, you have to have water in your mouth. That's why it's always wet. But it's increasing, right? So the body is responding just with the thought of eating. And so the body is also responding just with the thought of sex life. You don't have to think very much. It's just automatically, oh, we're going there again. Let's get ready. Yeah, so it means you don't even spill semen in your passing water. It's like kind of hardcore, right? So that's what that's talking about. We'll leave it at that. Oh, right, but it increases memory. 4 things I think in Kali Yuga are decreasing with time. It's this duration of life, mercy, and duration of life, mercy, and memories. And there's one more thing also. As Kali Yuga progresses, these 4 things are decreasing. One of them is duration of life. People are getting, the lifespan of the person is decreasing as you go further into Kali Yuga. Even though right now it looks like people are living a long time because of modern medicine. Well, there are countries where people are not living a long time. And the life they live isn't very pleasant either. So there are countries outside of Germany, outside of this industrialized nations, and it's a little more difficult there. But the memory, right? The memory, which is important for not only just memorizing verses, but if sometimes you become angry, the memory and intelligence are leaving, and you do something foolish, like you bloop into the material energy again. So it's important to have a nice memory, not only for learning nicely, but also just for protecting ourselves from misbehavior. And what's also interesting is yesterday somebody made the comment that in one of the Yoga Sutras, it says that you don't have to read. Reading is just sort of like not a very important function of sadhana anymore. And I think these Yoga Sutras were written at a time when people had better memory. And they may not have been even books. As it says right here, books, it says, without needing to read books, which therefore did not exist in former times. Because you could simply hear and then remember. Vyasadeva, he saw that as the age of Kali was progressing, people would not be able to do that anymore. So he wrote down the scriptures. Maybe he had somebody write it for him. I know Ganesh wrote Mahabharata. I don't know if he was able to enlist the services of Ganesh for also writing the Vedas, but somehow the Vedas were written, and this was under the determination and jurisdiction of Srila Vyasadeva, Vedavyas. Because in this time of Kali Yuga, people have bad memories, short memories. Manda sumanda matayo, manda bhyagya hyupadrutaha. And always kind of disturbed in the mind. Arbha bhavat, from very childhood. Another meaning is very affectionate to children. In other words, Paramahamsa life is dedicated for the benefit of others. Just as a father sacrifices many things out of affection for his son, great saintly persons sacrifice all kinds of bodily comforts for the benefit of human society. So this is something we can talk about a little bit. Whatever ashram a person may be in. So actually, it comes a little bit, we can go a little bit further here, backwards. If we have senses, right, like 14 of them, there's a whole mess of senses, and they are making demands constantly on the body, the mind. They're wanting to engage the mind constantly. We get a little hunger feeling in the stomach, and even if we don't have that hunger feeling in the stomach, the tongue, the sense of taste, right, sends a signal to the mind, making a demand, wants engagement, develop desire, impetus, right? We want to eat something according to a certain taste, sweet, sour, salty, like that, right? as we were speaking about sex life, you could say also the example of the active sense of regeneration. So the procreation impulse also sends a signal to the mind, right? To procreate. And basically all of the senses are doing this. And sometimes you can see people, which is very interesting, they're watching TV while they're eating. This is actually kind of common. Or they walk while they eat. So what does that mean? That means there's a competition. The senses are competing. The eyes want to see at the same time that the tongue wants to taste. Or the legs want to move, right? At the same time that the tongue wants to taste. And at the same time that we're looking on our smartphone. So there's even competition like that. But the point I want to make with this analogy, or this kind of like, journey into the senses, is that we are actually engaged in serving them all the time. We are always engaged in serving the senses. Therefore, this substantiates that we are actually servants. In the consciousness, there are two divisions of contaminated consciousness. I am the enjoyer and I am the controller. Right? And the ego is attached to these designations, because the ego is also a sense, right? One of the four subtle senses. Is attached to these designations and is seeking for some object. Like it wants to be acknowledged. Here I am, don't you know, I'm a Mr. So-and-so. You should honor me. Honor is kind of like short in supply, right? It's a scarce resource. So we have to compete a little bit with other people that also want to be honored. But the point here is that the contaminated consciousness in terms of controlling and enjoying, right? Well, there's another kind of consciousness. There's another kind of identity, ego. Right? The consciousness is Krishna consciousness, and the ego is I am his servant. And we can understand that even though, by this example of the senses, even though we want to be the controller, and we think we are the controller, we have this consciousness, I'm a doctor, I'm a police officer, I'm a nurse, I'm a mother or a father, and we have this kind of like also propensity for enjoying, controlling and enjoying, but actually we are all servants. If we are on serving Krishna, we at least have to serve our senses. They're making demands on the mind. You have to work hard to serve them. You have to work hard to serve the senses. And so in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, and I don't know where, but it says that human life is meant for service to others. So if we can understand that we are serving, we are servants, we are unable to avoid it, we can expand, we care for the senses, we can expand our sphere of love, right, as a synonym for caring, love, as a synonym for caring, expand it a little bit to include our family. Then we are not just servants of the senses, we are servants of the senses of the family. So it's a little bit leaning towards altruism. And then we can expand a little bit further, right, to the community, society, nations. In the 12th canto, the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, speaking to Arjuna, recommends that you renounce the fruits of your actions. And Prabhupada, even in one of the purports, there's a list of verses. What if I can't do this? What if I can't do that? Well, if you do this, and if you can't follow the rules and regulations of devotional service, give up the fruits of your work for me. If you're not able to do that, I don't remember how this is going, but practice renunciation, meditation in search for knowledge, right? And in one of those purports, Prabhupada says, gives the example of military service. Because in military service, you're serving. You don't get paid a lot. It's difficult, it's austere. But you're engaging in service to others. So we want to, understand that human life is meant for serving others. You can't avoid it. You cannot avoid serving others. In fact, all of the conflict we have in society, there's so much conflict. Holy cow, people are fighting over small things. But it comes back down to these senses, wanting to be served, and the competition for the objects of the senses, which is a scarce resource. Honor is a scarce resource, right? There can only be one president of the world. There can only be one president of the country. So there's competition. And that competition drives people, right? Lust, remember how that works? We become angry, we don't frustrated desires. Desire is like lust in a very concentrated form. Lust is desire in a concentrated form. And when the desire is frustrated, we become angry. And we lose our intelligence. We perform activities which are regrettable. So that can happen on the material platform, people competing for scarce resources which are the objects of their senses. So the conflict in society is because, unfortunately, persons have not learned how to regulate their sense enjoyment. But we are actually all servants. And when we expand our propensity for serving, even if we just expand it to the family, that's something, but still there's competition. Among families, there can be competition between communities, societies, and nations. So what is it explaining in this verse here, which is very nice, in this purport here, is that saintly persons sacrifice all kinds of bodily comforts for the benefit of human society. That means that they are not serving their senses. They're not serving their family's senses. They're not serving the senses of their community. They're serving the senses of the personality of Godhead. And the real compassion, because there's different kinds of compassion. They're engaging compassionate work, welfare work. There's compassion for the mind, right? You give a person education. There's compassion for the body. You give them some warm clothing. But they're engaged in the highest form of compassion because they're giving spiritual knowledge. So Paramahamsas, and ultimately we all want to kind of go in that direction, even if we're not going to assume the, order, the renounced order of life, even if we don't stay brahmacharis our whole life, or even if we do, even if we are only in householder life, we have to learn that our position in that service is to serve the spiritual needs of the community we are in, whether it's a family or larger, right? To serve those spiritual needs. And even though we may not be on this, and then that means also sacrifice. The father has to work, sacrifice for the children and the wife. The mother is also sacrificing in the service of others. So that's really kind of like Sanatana Dharma. Service to others. It's that Sanatana Dharma, that engagement, how does Prabhupada say this? It's that intrinsic quality, the intrinsic quality that you cannot avoid really, is serving. And Sanatana, it means that eternal, right? So eternal service means serving that which is eternal, which means Krishna, or serving in terms of spiritual compassion. So we also have to sacrifice all kinds of bodily discomforts, and we shouldn't complain about that. Let's talk now a little bit about the 6 Goswamis, because that's the next topic of this purport. And then we will end early. People can go read and chant. So they gave up their exalted positions as ministers and took vows as mendicants. Well, that's pretty huge. They went from having servants to wearing a loincloth and living under a tree. They wanted to minimize their bodily wants as far as possible. So we were talking about the senses, right? Body means senses. Prabhupada says that. He says body means senses. 18th chapter, verse 18. Bhagavad Gita. Body means senses. It says it. I'm reading this verse. It's very important. Purport. They accepted a loincloth and a begging bowl. So they wanted to minimize the bodily. So ultimately we want to do that also, but a little more gradually. We're not going to go from, trying to, we're not going to go like they did and live in a loincloth. Because we can also engage in, of course this is special, this situation, but the point is that to minimize bodily needs. Even the bodily doesn't need the same things that we give it sometimes. I know I can speak for myself. I honored more than prasadam last night than I needed to. It was partly I was honoring prasadam and partly I was working to digest prasadam. So this is the body, and our goal is to minimize the bodily needs. Do not take what's more than required. Eating, ahar, nidra, sleeping. Not required. I mean, it's okay if you're tired, sleep. Problem solved. Don't feel bad about that. When I'm tired, I also sleep. But to minimize these things, that is advancement in Krishna consciousness. Not that we do it artificially, though. It should not be artificially. It shouldn't be artificial. It should be natural. A natural consequence of your advancement in Krishna consciousness is that you spend less time with these 4 activities that we share with animals. Eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Reducing, reduction. Going down. And it's not artificial, that's very important. Not artificial that we, vairagya, right? Detachment from material world. This is not our process, that we detach. We attach to Krishna. And automatically detachment's going on. It's like if you have a glass of water. If you take some water out, automatically there's air going in there. So like if you attach yourself to Krishna, automatically then you're becoming less attached to the material energy. You will need less sleeping, less eating. So we can understand our advancement in Krishna consciousness. One way, is that we are less attached to these material activities. And it's not a race, it's not a competition. Right. Oh, what's this right here? Right. And the other thing that's very important about this is that they were following the orders of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They were following the orders of God, publishing various Vaishnava literatures. I wonder why. What was their, fascination? Why did Krishna want them to publish these Vaishnava literatures? It's because we are supposed to read. They were, we say this every morning before reading Nectar of Devotion, very expert in scrutinizingly studying the revealed scriptures for the purpose of establishing eternal religious principles for the benefit of all humanity. Thus they are honored all over the 3 worlds. So they are honored in the heavenly planets. And they're honored in the lower planets, 3 worlds, upper, middle, lower. Because of their service to humanity, but also, because they are engaged in this. So it's very important. Another very important part of this purport is that we really, really need to spend time studying the revealed scriptures. That's so essential in spiritual life. It really, really is important. We should read every day, as much as possible. And we should read the Bhaktivedanta purports. Bhaktivedanta purports. We could read the Jiva Goswami Satsandarbhas. I think that's very cool. I would like to read. And I know they're available. But that's like extra. Bhaktivedanta purports is like the bread and butter. It's like chanting Hare Krishna. It's not, you cannot substitute the Satsandarbhas by Jiva Goswami for the Bhaktivedanta purports. Because Srila Prabhupada has taken the Satsandarbhas and he's put them in the Bhaktivedanta purports where it is necessary. I've read Prabhupada citing Jiva Goswami, his Satsandarbhas, I forget which one. But he explains Astotara Stotara in the 4th canto. What does this mean? Jiva Goswami has explained it. Prabhupada has cited him in the Bhaktivedanta purports. There are so many nice literatures out there, but if you have not assimilated the 1st canto, then maybe you should read it again. Don't be afraid. Don't be ashamed. Oh, I'm reading this 1st canto again. I'm reading it again myself. I'm on part 3, Chapter 16. Yes, sir.
What means assimilated?
Assimilate means to put it into your life. To apply it, application. What does it mean? Sukadeva Goswami had heard all the Vedas and he had assimilated them by experience. Prabhupada says in the 1st canto that in explaining is also more important. You have to explain it. You have to be able to explain it really nicely. That's what Sukadeva Goswami was able to do because he had assimilated it by his own experience. Assimilate means application. If you apply something, then you have a better kind of knowledge and understanding of it. You can go a little bit deeper because you have realization. It's one thing to repeat, right? And that's very nice. It's appreciated, obviously. But it's something, it requires a little more skill and understanding, a little more it requires realization to explain the actual application. What does it mean? For example, humility is described in the 13th chapter, verses 8 through 12 of the Bhagavad Gita, not being anxious to have the satisfaction of being honored by others. But then what does that mean? Like in a practical application. How do I assimilate that? It's something that requires meditation. You have to meditate on it. And you shouldn't think, what are others doing? They're not so humble, are they? Look how proud that person is, right? This person's so proud. No. That's actually not the way it's supposed to work. Criticism of others, fault finding, is only sanctioned when it's for increasing the welfare of others. I should go tell them, you're doing it wrong. It's just for your own good. But maybe better first look at yourself. So when am I being proud? When am I not exercising humility? When I act in a way, when the motivation for my behavior, right, is governed, dictated by my ego's desire to be recognized. I want to be recognized. I have a desire to have the satisfaction. Because there's satisfaction there. It's a rasa, mellow, of enjoyment. I want to be satisfied by having that acknowledgement of others. I want them to recognize me because when they are recognizing me, I feel satisfied. My ego is like, oh yes, that's what we needed. Thank you. Finally. Holy cow. And how does it play out though? How is it played out? Well, I can tell you about my own personal experience because I try to assimilate this in my own life, right? I try to apply it to myself. So I have to really think about where is it happening? Well, vacho vegam manasakrodha vegam, right? So there are some senses that are in a line, right? Tongue, mind, belly, genitals. Straight line. And if we control the tongue, we can control the others. So sometimes the point I want to make here is that I'm speaking only because I want other people to hear what I'm saying and recognize me for what I know or what I've done. I've been to Hawaii. I used to live there. I joined there. Thank you. See how pious I am? Thank you very much. That's what I was looking for. So one quality of a devotee is that a devotee is silent. Not that they are practicing mauna, but they don't talk nonsense. Look, Krishna was in Dwarka. That's more important than me being in Hawaii. Krishna was in Dwarka. Lord Chaitanya walked to Jagannath Puri. He walked to South India. He found the Brahma Samhita. Let me say something intelligent, at least intelligent. Some beneficial thing about not me. So when I'm speaking, so when you are speaking, you can ask yourself, before you say something, am I saying this so I can be recognized? Don't you know what I know? I know things. Thank you. Or is it because I want to actually contribute something? Is it proper time, proper place? Like that. So this is just one example So this right here, right? Not being anxious to have the satisfaction of being honored by others. It has some very deep meaning, a very deep application. It's hard to understand. You have to really think about it. All of these scriptures have to be thought about a lot to really understand them. They have very deep meaning. The 6 Goswamis, when they were compiling them, they were scrutinizingly studying all the revealed scriptures. So we don't have to do that. They already did it for us. The sages in Naimisharanya, they said to Sutta Goswami, was he a Goswami or was he just a sage? Sutta Goswami, right? He was a sannyasi. They said, what is the essence of all revealed scriptures? Because in this age of Kali, people don't live very long. They have bad memory. They are plagued by vices. They are over-dependent on the mercy of others. They have a short duration of life, right? Don't live very long. And they are easily disturbed, very hypocritical. A lot of hypocrisy happening. I have to watch myself. Am I being a hypocrite? Hypocrisy starts at home. You know what it means, hypocrite? You look like you had a question mark there. It means to say something and then do something different than what you said. Like if I say that, for example, I should not speak just so people will hear me, but then I'm going around speaking so people will hear me, it's called hypocrisy. So that's like widespread. And so the sages asked Sutta Goswami, what is the essence of all scriptures? Please tell us the essence, because there's so many, and people, they don't live very long. What are they going to do? What is the essence? We don't live long enough to study all the revealed scriptures. So then we have Srimad Bhagavatam. Amala Puranam, the Amala, the nectar. Easily to digest, right? Means easily to eat, right? Yeah. Nigama Kapaturo Galitam Sukhamukam. Anyway, it's easy to understand. It's given to us, it's a Purana actually. It's very easy to understand and digest. Spotless Purana. Amala, is that right? Amala. See, even my Sanskrit is pretty bad. I shouldn't even be sitting up here, technically, but it's my service, so I'm doing.
Yeah. You mentioned that Bhagavat, it's a Rasamala, it's a juice, just drink it.
Yeah, thank you. Rasamalayam. Shishi Vijay Gauranga Kijay. So they took everything, they compiled it, the essence, right? So they wanted to minimize their bodily needs so they can simply focus on their spiritual life. And we also do that according to our natural ability. It's gradual, slow steps, gradual process. And the point is that then Srila Prabhupada, and of course this is passed down, right? And then Srila Prabhupada took the essence and he's giving it to us in the form of his purports. Bhakti Vedanta purports. So we should try to read daily as we also chant daily. And take advantage of the hard work that the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan did for the benefit of humanity. They left their ministerships and they took up loincloths and begging bowls so they could leave nice literature for us. And that's all I have to say today. Are there any questions?
In one purport,
yes, sir.
Bhakti Vedanta purport, Prabhupada says, if possible, you can read 24 hours. This quotation from yesterday, not from Yoga Sutra. We cannot find any Shastra, it was not necessarily to read. This is from another Sampradaya. This is from Sahaja Sutra. And reading is, if you read again and again, that's like smart. The first one is like Shravana, then like Smarana. Just remembering. It was before. It was very good for training memory. This is the best way. How you can reject this, especially in Kali Yuga? It's a big influence in Kali Yuga.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Yes, sir.
How to get over the hypocrisy? Do you have any?
You have to kind of look at yourself, introspection. That's, you have to really kind of look at yourself. Listen to yourself talking. Try to remember what you said so that you don't go back on what you said, right? And what's really helpful also is to be simple-hearted. If you develop a simple heart, if you're truthful and honest, and what's helpful for being simple-hearted is to be fearless. Because if you are fearless, then you don't have to have a crooked heart. You're not afraid of the outcome you can't control. This duplicity is not very healthy for spiritual life. It's one of the anarthas, I think. It's not very healthy. Because hypocrisy is a sort of kind of like a duplicity. I say I'm treating you one way, but then I'm acting a different way. This is two happenings. And in order to be very simple, it really helps to not be afraid, of course, because this propensity for duplicity is there because of a desire to control. One reason, right? Some desire to control is there. We want to control an outcome, or we want to enjoy. It's contaminated consciousness, right? Those two divisions, controlling and enjoying. So if you just develop a really kind of clean heart, pure heart, simple heart, you have to become free from fear. You don't care. You have to understand, you have to have a little more faith and understand that there already is a controller. He's got it all under control. Already. I don't need to help him out. I can just serve, do what he wants me to do, it'll work out. So as your faith increases, right, you'll be less duplicitous. You'll have less hypocrisy.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And one more question. When I'm on Sankirtan, there are coming impurities up, and I didn't even thought that this is in me, I didn't see it. And now I'm thinking how to deal with it.
Yeah, this is great. Yeah. Good question. Guess what? I've also got impurities that are coming up when I'm doing my service. So I'll tell you only what I can tell you. I mean, that's like a distraction, right? Something comes up into the mind. But don't you want to do that? So you have to go, no, I want to go here. You have to kind of focus more on your service. The desire to perform your service has to be greater than the desire to enjoy through these method that has been presented to you in your mind. And the only way to do that is to strengthen it. So go dive deeper into your service. I mean, that's really the answer. And it sounds so simple, but it's really the answer, and it works too. Depending on the anartha, there's other things. If you're envious of somebody, you can practice thinking of their good qualities. Envy means that someone disturbs you. If somebody disturbs you, then you're envious of them. That's called envy. Right? It's Krishna working through this person. Krishna is working through them. That's God. Why are you envious of God? He's controlling everything all the time. He's testing you. Tick, 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 tick. I want to really annoy this personality today. How tolerant are you really? Nice class, but are you really tolerant? How tolerant are you really? So this is a test. It's being sent to you. Krishna's brought it. He says, yes, I see, Moses, you want to come to me, but what about that? Are you sure you don't want it? It's still there, it's got to go. Make room for me. So you have to dive into your service more. There's only one way forward, and that's just to keep going. Keep chanting, keep hearing, keep reading. Try to avoid offensive behavior. Yeah? Avoid that offensive behavior. Yeah. Tolerate other people. Tolerate all kinds of people in the streets. When talking about these people are kind of not always very polite towards you. Maybe, right?
Sorry? What?
like on the street in Sankirtan, the people aren't very polite maybe.
Yeah.
You have to tolerate them. They're kind of rude or something. You should tolerate them. I was hit one time on Sankirtan doing a book. Yeah, someone from the side hit me. I was telling somebody about a book and then somebody hit me. So you have to tolerate that. I mean, that's an extreme example. I mean, other people have been hit before, so I'm not the first person who's been hit on Sankirtan, you know. It's just going on. This is happening. People have been kidnapped, you know. So all kinds of things are going on. All of that has to be tolerated. And just dive in your service. And if you dive into your service, then everything will be revealed. It's service. It's like communion with God. Chanting Hare Krishna, reading Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. Okay. Hare Krishna. We're good? Karantara Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Thank you very much for your comments, your questions. No, please don't do that. Thank you.